Thank you so much, Kimberly. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming. Can you feel the energy in this room? I promise you it's from research and innovation, not the pollen outside, but there might be a little energy, coming from that. But thank you for coming to our 4th annual Tricks event. So I have the pleasure of introducing our keynote speaker today. He is part of a New Orleans institution that is really no stranger to technology innovation. He's affiliated with this homegrown powerhouse called Interlocks, which is a logistics and technology company that services many of the world's best recognized brands and names in transport. John Landrum, who is our speaker today, Interlocks' Vice President for Business Development, is a tireless champion from innovation and technology at Interlocks in the greater New Orleans area. John holds a BA in English from Westminster College in Missouri and a Juris Doctor degree from Georgetown University Law Center. After practicing business litigation for 10 years, John joined Latham and its subsidiary Interlocks, where he has worn quite a few hats: General Manager for Europe, Marketing Manager, Business Development Manager, Vice President for Emerging Industries, General Manager for Asia Pacific, and Manager of New Project Development. That's amazing. John is a creator and host of a Triple Win Workplace podcast, and he's an author, actually, of a book called The Jonkheer Wife, which is a World War II novel set in occupied Holland. John, I hope you get that made into a movie. That would be fantastic. So John is a board member of the Bureau of Government Research, a past board chair of KIPP New Orleans Schools, and co-founder and past president of the Young Leadership Council. John has a very happy and long marriage, 2 adult children, and from what I understand from my notes here, a growing brood of grandchildren. So happy grandfather. So everybody, please help me welcome John to the stage. As John gets set up, we're going to watch a short video on his company, Interlocks.
I was pushing my son in his stroller, trying to put him to sleep. As I was pushing him down the hotel hallway, I was positioning the wheels and locking the casters and watching the angled motion of the stroller. And the idea just hit me of an angled roller belt. A lot of people look at the ARB and think it's magic. 90% of the packages that show up at your door every day have been sorted on an Interlocks angled roller belt.
We had a very inventive founder, J.M. Lapierre, 190 U.S. patents. J.M. Lapierre's first invention was a shrimp peeling machine. His family had been in the shrimp processing business, where people were peeling shrimp by hand. And someone had said to him, if you can ever figure out a way to automate this, that'd be a big deal. There's something about innovation. It's easy to think, well, if something's really innovative, it must be very complicated. Often the opposite is true. The most interesting innovations are what inventors call elegant.
The innovative side of engineering is very much an art form that is more imagination than it is engineering. At some point, there needs to be engineering principles to back up an idea, and it has to work. But before you can ever figure that out, the idea comes from the imagination. Very simple ideas have had a huge impact on the world.
All of us consume things. We eat. We drink. We wear out our tires and replace them. There's an invisible world that gets all that to us. Interlocks is a big part of making that real.
Thank you, Chad, and thank you, Kimberly. I think it's fantastic that you all are making the investments to keep furthering the innovation ecosystem here in New Orleans. one of the best possible things that could happen in this city. And so thanks for driving that. Just real quickly, just trying to get the lay of the land, how many undergraduates are here in the audience? And how many graduate students? You, okay, good. So people my age, I'll have to, true confession, I am profoundly old, okay? I'm so old I appeared briefly in the Bible. I didn't do anything interesting, but I'm really old. And people my age are jealous of people your age because you're still at that age where you have that unbounded possibility, right? We look back with nostalgia to being your age, but we forget that there's also some stress associated with that, right? You're making some of the most important decisions you'll ever make, like what is my career going to be? Where am I going to work? Where am I going to live? What is going to be my long-term relationship? Those are high-stakes decisions. And part of what may happen today is I'll paint a picture of one organization that's very healthy, and whether this organization you find attractive or not, it may give you some ideas of how you want to think about the organization that you eventually do join. How many of you had parents who encouraged you to study hard in school so that someday you could sell modular plastic conveyor belts? It may surprise you, mine didn't either, right? So I came by this through a funny route that Kimberly asked me to talk about. As she mentioned, I was an English major, and English majors have no marketable skills, and so I went to law school, and I found a quick attraction to litigation. I was in something in my first year they call moot court, where it's mock combat, right? I have a case, I have to win, I have to lose, and I was so nervous, I had to have a glass of wine before I got up there and did my thing. But I got up there and started talking, and the words came out, we won, I was funny, and I thought, you get paid to do this? I thought, what could be better than that? And so I joined a New Orleans law firm. I was on the 23rd floor of 909 Poydras. I thought, what a career. And then you start to notice that litigation, while it's exhilarating and uses a lot of your skills, it is a clear zero-sum game. I think you know what I mean by that, right? So for me to get $500,000 for my client, somebody's got to lose $500,000, and I'm going to take some out as my fee, right? I'm not making the world richer. And you start to just be aware of that, right? I mean, it's better than us beating each other up with clubs. It's a better system than the alternatives, but it's not very satisfying if you are into creating win-win relationships. And so I was encouraged by a bank officer at Whitney Bank at the time to join the board of the Lighthouse for the Blind in New Orleans. And he was telling, I couldn't say no because he was a client, and he was telling me about the other incoming directors, and he said, have you heard of the Landrum Corporation and Jay LaPierre? He's coming in, and they've got, you know, they're a shrimp peeling company, and they have this new conveyor belt they're pretty excited about. And I was really self-conscious about what's a non-obvious way, how do I not show how boring that sounds, right? There was like one of the least interesting things I had ever heard. But I get on the board of the Lighthouse of the Blind, and Jay LaPierre is this remarkable figure. We were losing a lot of money every year against a small endowment. He quickly turned it around and was just an amazing human. And he soon after that got off the board because we won a big jury verdict for infringement of some of J.M. LaPierre's patents. And Interlocks was a better credit, Landrum was a better credit again, and he said, I can't stay on the board anymore, you understand, and of course the bank officer did. But I kept in touch with Jay, and one thing led to another, and eventually he said, well, you know, we could use a guy like you out here. I don't know what we would do with you, and I was intrigued by it, because I knew they had an international operation, and I just respected Jay, and one thing led to another, and I'm interviewing at some point now, and I was restless as an attorney, and I got to the interview. This was one of these old-fashioned interviews. We're all wearing suits. This is in 1993. We're wearing suits and ties, and there are 4 executives in the room, just an hour and a half. And Jay's very quiet. And he finally asks one question near the end. He says, John, imagine you had an idea to improve this company, and I said no, and you had conviction about it. Convince me you're the kind of person I could trust to keep pushing that idea. So I found that electrifying. I don't know how you would react to a question like that, just maybe you can introspect for a minute and say, well, what would you say, yeah, I'd like to work here, or would you say that's discouraging? For me, the point is, I don't want political animals. I'm not looking for yes men. I found that compelling. So then we went. I joined, and then I took in sequence all the jobs that Chad talked about. We're still trying to find something I'm good at. And now that I'm winding down, I'm about to retire before they realize I don't have any actual skills. So it's a big relief. How many of you have ever had an idea? A lot of you never have, huh? That's interesting. I don't get a lot of audiences that don't raise their hand.
Ideas are on their posters.
Okay, so a lot of you have had ideas. How many of you have already gotten rich from your idea? Because maybe I'll trade places with you. Maybe you should come up here and take the podium. So nobody quite yet. And maybe you can think about, so a lot of inventors starve. Even a lot of very good inventors. People with good ideas, most of them don't go anywhere. One board membership I didn't list, because I was only on the board about 3 years, was the Idea Village. Do you all know what the Idea Village is? I love that whole environment. They're trying to do something similar to what you're trying to do. They're trying to create an ecosystem of inventors and collaborators. Well, here's what happens when they have their demo day. And I say this with love. I'm about to make fun of them, but I'm going to say it with love, okay? So they've been coached. They have, 9 or 10 people who come up and show their idea. And everyone is certain to succeed because they've done their homework, they've been well coached, and we're the first company to figure out how you can automate cat vacations. And we have all this intellectual property, we have patents, and here's our business model. It's all thought of, and 9 out of 10 fail. And they're all sincere, and they're all intelligent. So you can ask, well, what is it? So this is the Tulane Research, Innovation, and Creativity Summit. I'm going to talk about innovation, and I'm going to change the subject a little bit to say effective innovation, right? Because all of you have had ideas. Idea generation is not, you want it. You want to have an ecosystem where there's a lot of idea generation. But real quickly, to understand why our company is a good vehicle for making all those wonderful ideas real, I have to give you a little more background. So we really had, Interlox, my employer, is the largest subsidiary of Landrum. Landrum is Martial spelled backwards. Martial was the middle name of the man you saw, J.M. Lapierre, who had 190 patents. And the least interesting of those, because he had patents on capturing wave energy, digital compasses that are still used in seismic exploration and submarines, computer optical printers that we successfully sued NEC and IBM for infringing. I mean, it was, and the single least interesting thing he invented was this thing that I sell. It's just the idea, because in his shrimp processing machines, they had metal belts. Think of chains, woven metal. They were a maintenance nightmare. They were rusting, they were tearing up, and it was easy to hurt yourself working on them. You needed experience. It was just a nightmare. And he had the idea of using Lego pieces joined by interconnecting rods so that it's modular, and they run on sprockets so that it's inherently low tension and inherently low maintenance. And if it does need maintenance, you can repair it in 5 minutes. That was the idea. And now at Landrum, it's the real growth engine. The total, there are several divisions at Landrum, but Interlox is over $1 billion, and it's the biggest part of that. So I think one lesson is when we think of innovation, we probably tend to think of something that, as Mark said, it's going to look tricky, it's going to look exotic. Some of the best innovations are just geometric, just a shape that is weirdly empowering. And that's going to come back again in a minute when I talk about how we sell to the logistics companies. So yes, I had every job once, and before I come to my career and innovation, I'll tell you phase 2 of our history. After JM phased out, you probably don't think of business model innovation in the same category of innovation. But when Jay Lapierre, the son of JM, took leadership in the late 1980s, they did 2 things. First of all, he pushed a comprehensive business philosophy that optimizes the triple win that's necessary for any business. How do you keep raising customer value? Because if the customers aren't winning, if you're not the best option for them, they go away. It has to be highly profitable so the owners keep investing, and it has to be a great workplace for the people who are making it real. So we have a comprehensive business philosophy. You can study it on our website. And the synthesis is what's unique. We're highly incentivized by shares of the profit pool. A big part of my pay comes from a share of our profits every year. And there are a million, and part of our business philosophy is Jay's question. He's not looking for yes men. He's looking for people who have the integrity to say what they think. Now, I sometimes have to remind Jay that he treasures my disagreement. He sometimes forgets. He doesn't hug me when I disagree with him. But that's part of why he asked the question, because he knows it takes effort to be that guy. So that was the business philosophy. And the other thing was going direct. So back in the late 1980s, most people selling a component like ours were selling through distributors and resellers. And we decided to jump that channel, which was a very scary thing, but we decided to start selling directly to food processors and manufacturers. And immediately, it was terrifying, but immediately, everything got better. Our margins rose, the customer price, what they paid went down because there was no middleman. We got transparency. Our sellers, who were better at selling this thing and servicing this thing than the distributors were much more effective. We got real-time feedback. And from that, we grew a very innovative business model of saying, we're going to spend a lot of money making sure that our customers have throughput. So for anybody in manufacturing or food processing, they've got a very expensive capital base. If you walk into a modern food processing plant, a modern tire plant, modern can maker, modern beer brewer, it's a lot of money tied up there. And they live or die based on something they call throughput. How many units of value can they get through their system over a function of time? And downtime is their enemy. And we're selling uptime. That's what the belting does. It's like the arteries in your circulatory system. We don't sell the hearts, we don't sell the stomach, we sell the arteries, and downtime is precious. So we said, okay, how do we have the expertise that's touching these accounts to make sure that we get it right the first time? We have real-time troubleshooting. If there's a problem in the plant, you can dial our 800 number, and within 3 rings, an expert picks up, who's trained for at least 3 months. And if none of that does it, we maintain manufacturing and assembly buffers, and we can get a new belt of any dimension, the size of those stands, to the loading dock in 4 hours, guaranteed in advance. That's unheard of in our business, and it's most of what our costing is. But those were big innovations that were foundational to what I'll call the next stages. So finally then, the next stage came with that man you saw on the video, Mark Costanzo. He was reporting to me, and he came into my office. He was selling into the tire making industry. And he came into my office with a sample of that TRT belt. He said, John, there's a big problem in tire making when tires come out of the press, when green tires put in the tire press to be vulcanized and formed into what you currently see as a tire. When they come out, there are these takeaway lines, and tires come from different presses, and they jam against each other. And if they jam early, they're going to be scrapped, and there's going to be downtime. That's very expensive. And the transverse roller top belt eliminated friction, so they didn't jam anymore. It was like overnight. We couldn't make it fast enough. It was patented. And when I saw how much that changed everything, because all of our other patents had worn out, I became an innovation bug. Kimberly's going to ask me later, why do I like innovation? First of all, it saved me from starving, because we were selling what had become what looked like a commodity product, and suddenly here's a patented product that the customers just can't pay enough for, and we could charge very high margins for it. I couldn't tell my mom what we charged for that belt. It was just, it was embarrassing. It was very high margins, and we couldn't make it fast enough. And then came the activated roller belting that you saw. That's all under Mark's watch. So phase 4 is now. Phase 4, we're saying, okay, that was a breakthrough product. How do we now have a lot more people in the arena? So I was managing until recently a big group of innovators trying to do exactly that, trying to manage our product development. And we began to say, well, what are some things that keep these good ideas, because all of you have ideas, and some of you have posters, and you'll be talking about them. So what's the environment? What are the principles that make these ideas actually come to life? Because again, the idea generation is not the main limiting factor. It's something else. So what is it? And we say, well, first of all, let's only work on important stuff. We have the customer interface from the business model that I talked about. That's a platform from which we can innovate because we are more in touch with these customers than they are with themselves sometimes. So we should only work on stuff that's important. Number two, we should do very good problem definition. I bet if you're a technologist, you know what I mean by that. But so, for example, imagine you go to your doctor and you say, I need an appendectomy. And your doctor says, okay, that's surprising, but the operating room is open in a couple of hours. Let's get an anesthesiologist to get you in there. That would be pretty weird, right? Well, our customers ask us for appendectomies all the time. They'll say, I need this product with this feature. And our good lead engineers say, well, what's the problem you're trying to solve? And then you have to create an environment of collaboration. The person who thinks he's the lone wolf, J.M., our famous inventor, was not a lone wolf. He invited collaborators all the time. So it takes a mindset, an egoless mindset. And I'll talk before I wrap and open up to the interview about what I'll call the advancer function. Okay, so Ray Dalio in his book Principles said in a creative process there are 4 categories. One is the creator. And that's what we're talking about. Every one of you is a creator if you've had an idea. The advancer is the one who says, that might not work, but if you made this little change, it would. Or here's who you should take that idea to. Somebody who finds a way to help that person bring it to market. And that's a scarcer thing, because it's more egoless, it's less fun, it's less satisfying. But that's what's missing in a lot of these environments. And then finally, we have an ecosystem. We're already pre-made, we're set up so that we can sell every invention we have. So it's very satisfying for an inventor. A lot of people, you might be tempted to go into technology, and there are probably a lot of good employers, but I'll give you aerospace as an example. They used to attract ambitious young engineers a generation ago, and a lot of them would go in, and we have some of their refugees. They'd work on a piece of finite element analysis for a couple of years, and then a committee would decide they weren't going to use it. So it's just like stultifying. And so our products, if you're working on something in our environment, it's going to sell. It's going to be released, and it's going to sell. And you get a feedback loop that people find satisfying. So it's time to wrap and move to the interview. But those are some thoughts. So when you're thinking about an employer, think about a place where you're encouraged to say what's on your mind, to ask questions, and where you have an ecosystem that's more likely to get things done. And thanks, and now we're going to do the interview, I think.
Hi, everyone. I'm back. Eric, would you mind flipping back to that last slide on inventors, if you don't mind? I'd like to just, before we get started on some of the questions, for those of you in the audience, just sort of taking a big step back here, John talked about ideas and creativity, and I would add curiosity to solve problems. And a lot of you are doing that over the next, well, in your coursework, but over the next 2 days, we'll be hearing about your work and what you've been spending time on. And what's interesting about that is like there's stages to the development of your ideas. And I like to think of it in these buckets, right? And so there's your aha moment, or hey, I got to do this as part of my capstone course, and so I'm going to put together this experiment. But there's the idea and the creation, the aha moment, and then is there a there, right? And then the next step would be if that idea needs to be protected, that's called an invention. And then from there, when you've protected the idea, meaning that it's new and novel and it doesn't exist somewhere else in the world, then we go to, okay, well, how does that invention, that new knowledge, create value in the world we live in, regardless of the discipline? And that's called innovation. So understanding where your idea, if you think of it as a puzzle, how does it fit in that puzzle? And then does it turn into a product or a service that then the world can benefit from, right? And so science is really important because we're creating new knowledge. We're learning from one another and we're building upon that. But the continuum needs to evolve, and that's sort of what John and Interlocks do. And I wanted to really point out and emphasize this slide because it's very powerful. Interlocks was founded here in Louisiana, and they have 2,100 patents in force around the world. That's a big number, John. 20 patent applications annually. That's probably about, think about I don't know if Kelly or Chad, you know how many faculty members that we have at Tulane. Is it 3,000? 2,000. 2,000 faculty members at Tulane, and we might do 20 patent applications annually. And so they're one company with a lot of really smart people, a lot of Tulane alums. Yeah.
Sorry, a lot of Tulane alums.
And then they're spending $40 million on inventions and innovations annually. That's a really powerful asset that we have here in the state of Louisiana, and Louisiana is known for manufacturing. And so I just wanted to kind of hone in on that because those numbers in context are really powerful. And I think that the way that the culture that you've built around innovation, maybe we can talk just a little bit more about that in terms of the kind of individuals that you look for. You gave really great example about yourself, but being someone that challenges the status quo. But is that what scientists and people that are curious do?
Well, it has to be, can you hear me? Is my mic on? So it has to be about seeking truth, right? When one of our meetings is going well, it should be hard to tell who's the boss. Our bosses are not very bossy. So if a boss is there, if it's very important for the boss to win every argument, he's gonna be a real problem, right? You're trying to say, how do I make the best ideas get out? I will tell you something else that I've noticed about engineers, though. So engineers, like law and like faculty, that's a knowledge profession, right? And how do you judge yourself in a knowledge profession? It's by seeming smart. Our best inventors, Mark Costanzo, the guy here, doesn't care about that. He doesn't care how he looks. His first product never works. He releases something, he realizes, oh my God, okay. And he fixes it, and then the fix is what we sell. So he wasn't considered our best engineer when he was in the engineering department, but he's one of the most effective employees we ever had as an inventor. So if you're worried about seeming smart in real time, you're gonna be a problem. You gotta be about the outcomes, you gotta be committed to solving real problems, and you gotta be committed to truth. Because Jay has a saying, reality bats last. If our product doesn't work, we can't talk our way out of that. And if the customers don't want it, we can't justify our work. You gotta go back to the drawing board.
So what is the phenotype of that person? Is that person, we talk about customer discovery here a lot in our programming, right? Understanding what is the problem set, right? You talked a little bit about that in your words. And it's like, we think we know what the problem is, and then we might be wrong, right?
So you hit it earlier when you said curiosity. Mm-hmm. And it's not just surface curiosity. I'm very good at surface curiosity. Our best inventors dig a lot more deeply than I would and get to the root of the problem and do that good problem definition we talked about, right? They're not working on appendectomies, they're working on solving a real problem. So they bring that real curiosity to know what's the root cause. That's part of the phenotype. But then I'm more interested, we call it breaking stuff. I'm more excited about changing the world than I'm about status or I am about looking smart in real time.
So I was just thinking about the phenotype piece. I draw sort of some parallels with scientists and with entrepreneurs. And while scientists follow the scientific method, which I'm sure all of you know here, this iterative process, right, that guides that is something that we teach and we're asking our students and our faculty to share in their posters. entrepreneurial thinking and these folks that are curious, they iterate as well. What does that look like inside Interlocks?
That's a great question. That's a great question. And it can be progressive. Okay, so one big advantage we have is that we are very much embedded at our accounts, as I mentioned. So unlike most inventors,
So you're close to the problems.
we have a real channel advantage where we live that problem. And no, some people can live that problem and still not notice things. So you still have to be inquisitive, but we have big advantage. We have entree, and we have stereophonic pictures of our accounts. So if you say, a big problem you can make is, I can take you, my contact, too seriously or not seriously enough. And so our best inventors, and one guy who is not in the video, but Matt Forney, who's sort of the twin tower to Mark Costanzo, he's very good at going to an account, and when the account says, oh, I don't need that invention, he doesn't fold the tent. He'll say, oh, is that because you don't have these conditions in the plant? Because he knows what makes this invention valuable or not. And the guy will then say, oh my God, okay, we do. Yeah, so I do need your invention. So he keeps looking, he objectifies that. Like almost anything we've ever done, whether it's the business philosophy, going direct, the transverse roller top belt, the ARB that flowed from that, anything, any of our jewels was controversial at first. None of these things, when first expressed as an idea, got a hug. And so you have to be...
So there's tension
There's
in it.
tenacity, there's grit,
Yeah.
but it's not stupid tenacity. So they, like Mark and these guys really are listening, but they're processing what they hear. Like, have I understood it? The way he would put it is, does this guy know something I don't know? Or does he just not know something I know? But he's filtering the negative input to say, what can I learn from that? And sometimes you don't learn anything from it, and you keep going. So tenacity is something I didn't. Mark Costanzo is the most tenacious human you will ever meet, because sometimes these mistakes are on a big scale, right? You sell like a big program to the post office and it doesn't work. You're living that problem with a big group on site for like a year, right. and then you sort it out well enough, and now they're the best friend you ever had, and long term you make a lot of profit from that. But you have to have that tenacity.
So one of your slides said you had 60,000 customers. Let's talk about who some of those customers are. In the video, 90% of what you all receive at your front door in terms of deliveries have rolled off an Interlocks belt.
Yes.
So,
And let me take a moment to ask another snarky question, if you don't mind.
all right, Snarky.
Because I bet some of you, one thing that tends to be true of this generation is they have a high sense of mission, right? You want to have a highly purposeful life. And yeah, so that's great. So let me ask you now, just think, don't say it because it's very personal, but what do you value? Ask yourself, what do you value more than anything else? Just think about that. It's very private. Don't want the extroverts to drown. Just think about it. Everybody thought about it? Well, here's the correct answer. The correct answer is oxygen. You didn't name it because it's not scarce. But when it is scarce, you're trying to fix that before any other noble things that you had in your mind that you value more than anything else. Well, our customers don't sell oxygen, but they sell water, drink, food, the things that keep us moving, right? So they come pretty close to the lowest end of Maslow's scale of human needs. And we are supplying those. So that sense of mission is real, and it's very close to home in our environment. And Kimberly, because I'm very old, I forgot your question. So if you want to repeat.
My question is, who is your customer?
Oh, sorry, yes.
If
So,
Amazon didn't have Interlocks,
Yes.
would they go out of business?
no, but they would be using things.
Like the horse to
Here's-
get your goods
here's-
to the door?
I will tell you, if Interlocks had been disabled during Katrina or COVID, that would have affected the American food supply. I'll come back to Amazon in a second, but people like Tyson Foods and a lot of the fruit and vegetable processors are so dependent on us. They were calling us right after Katrina saying, what do you need? We're too dependent on you. You need it. What can we send? Lawyers, guns, money, what do you need? And so now at Amazon, what do they try to do? They're trying to meet their franchise is based on same-day turnarounds. So if something comes into a system, they need to get it out that shift. And so they need, and it's crowded. and they've sort of built the church for Easter Sunday, because it kind of has to be. That you don't build it for a low day, you build it for a high day. And so you need very reliable equipment that can do all this very reliably in a small footprint. And if they didn't have interlocks, they'd be using systems that are more expensive, less effective, and larger footprint, and probably more downtime, which would scare them. They'd still be in business, but they'd be less happy.
Okay. So something that we're focused on here at Tulane is exposing our students and our faculty to the kind of work that a company like Interlocks does for two reasons: attract and retain. We've talked about this on a number of occasions, but this idea that we're creating opportunity here for folks in our community, and we're attracting other industry because we have such amazing talent. Tell me, what's a project that would be interesting to you that you could work on with some of our students and or some of our faculty, and how does that play out? What does that look like?
We'd love doing exactly that. Philips, the famous Dutch company, until recently had an innovation group that would do outsourced innovation for people. And we relied on them for some of the highest tech adaptations of that ARB equipment, for example. Closer to home, you may have heard of TMTP, the group that's got the way of making graphene a lot more affordable. We have an exclusive deal with them to say, if your cheaper graphene works, can be moldable in our plastics and brings those benefits, yeah, we could channelize that. So we love materials. We work with Dr. Pashika here quite a lot on materials. In fact, the leader of our materials group is sitting right there on the third row.
Raise your hand. You guys got to meet him.
So so I'm not the guy to meet, just so you know. But that's the guy to meet if you want to.
This guy tells jokes.
If you need a joke, find me. But if you want to talk about materials, that's Adam Bannerman. And so we love people who have polymer, and any kind of material. And we're not good at channeling that necessarily, but we want to get better at it. And that's why we like our relationship with your group, Kimberly. We also like working on, I'll take a quick detour. I don't know how we are on time, but I'll take a quick detour. 3M, everybody's heard of 3M. They have in their business units, like 25 business units, they do their normal product development. They also have, independently of those, central research labs that are coming up with cool stuff that enable whole new potential vistas of innovation, but also may not be feasible. And so whenever they come up with something like that, they take it to the business units where they're hoping knowledgeable people can connect the dots. So Landrum and Interlocks would love to be a deployer of first resort when people have, and most of our stuff is physical, but also we use AI in a lot of configurations. And we do a lot of digital stuff, so I'm not sure. I mean, I think some of your people in your group know what we're up to and what's relevant to us, but we love that. We love having those relationships.
Right. Okay, I think we have a minute or two to ask some questions in the audience, and we've got some microphones if you need one. Clay here will march it over, so give you a moment here to see if you have any questions.
Hi, how are you? What do you think are the greatest risks to Interlocks infrastructure here in New Orleans?
I think we're pretty weatherproof. We learned some hard lessons at Katrina. We have a parallel system in Hammond now for injection molding, and that would have been the main risk, because we have assembly around the world, and our European assemblers really took care of the American customers during that period. So physically, I think another challenge is, do people quit wanting to live here? As insurance rates go up and it just gets scarier, because we're a big employer here, and we like having a good population of talented employees. So I think the talent risk is the greater risk if things get hairier, and some of those people might not be, we have really great talent in Hammond, but some people might not be willing to relocate. So that's our risk.
Any other questions? Oh, we have one here. Melissa.
Is there something that you say to yourself every day, or maybe not every day, but every month, that gets you out of bed in the morning and makes you excited to do what you do?
Yeah. So the question was, what do I tell myself or remind myself that kind of gets me out of bed, or what keeps me jazzed? So I actually do that. I actually do some sentence completion on weekends where I say, if I brought my full consciousness to raising my value at Interlocks, I might. And I just brainstorm, daydream, and sometimes most of the answers are not very good, but some are very good. And it helps me. We value people who are highly proactive and kind of drive their own careers, like Mark Costanzo did. All that was his idea. So we like that. But I'll tell you, for me, innovation is so inherently cool. It started with just, escape velocity from competition after our original patents had expired. But then I found that I just like being in the arena with creative people. It's more fun. But the final thing, and what you start to realize, is how ennobling it is. Like when I go to Baltimore, the center of gravity for that technology, that's where because we have a Baltimore operation doing all that. When you see every year that really exotic high tech is sucking in new talent, and they're engaged, and every year they're better, and they're rejuvenating talent. It's a virtuous cycle, and you say, wow, this is what innovation should be doing, where the technology is sucking in people, and those people are making it better, and then they're being challenged by the next round and getting better themselves, and people find that very satisfying. People, you can see, think people don't want to work hard. People want to work hard if they have a sense of mission, and if they see the results, and if they find themselves rising to challenges.
There's a question here.
Thank you, Clay. Hi. I guess my question is, what do you see as the biggest opportunity for innovation in Louisiana moving forward? I know you all talked a little bit about manufacturing and energy being some things that Louisiana is really good at. What are some opportunities you see where Louisiana could do better in innovation? Where are we kind of stumbling now and have some room?
America talks a lot about having lost its blue collar or industrial base in manufacturing, but there's a lot that still happens here. And certainly when I was in college and law school, I thought I was too intelligent to work at a company like, I didn't know what Interlocks was, but I thought, well, I'm too intelligent to work at a place like that. It's in manufacturing. And I certainly would have thought I was too intelligent to work in sales. And then you get into it and trying to promote your products, to a manufacturing base. There's no limit to how much intelligence you can bring to that activity. So I think part of it is promoting, to answer your question, Louisiana has a lot of industrial stuff going on. But a lot of Americans, when we say a lot of manufacturing has gone offshore, it's partly because a lot of Americans don't want to do it. So like when I said, did your parents tell you, work hard so you can sell modular plastic and conveyor belts? Keep an open mind. Part of innovation is keeping an open mind to where the innovation is. In that book, The Millionaire Next Door, a lot of the innovations happen in very out-of-the-way places. So keep an open mind to where those opportunities are. The world is full of unmet needs. I don't know how the world runs out of unmet needs. So to understand what's going wrong, what the opportunity is, get exposed to things. And I think institutions like this are a big part of that, just promoting the idea of innovation and trying to make the connections that Kimberly and Chad are trying to make is a very big part of that. But I would say making New Orleans a very livable place is a big deal. New Orleans has a lot of advantages, a lot of creative types, and I don't just mean poets, but people that are creating companies want to live in a place like this with neighborhoods and that, but they'll be chased away if things get bad enough in roads and schools and crime. So just first doing no harm is one piece of advice I'd give to the government, and then just making it a safe and good place to live. And the rest, I think, takes care of itself.
Chad, you got a question?
I do, actually. So I found it very interesting in the video with your founder, 190 patents, and it kind of, got me thinking about, the individual who only does 2 or 3 patents, versus, somebody that does 190, and the first person that jumps to my mind is the Robert Kearns who did the intermittent windshield wiper, and
Yep.
Innovative on every car, but he only had like 5 patents, and, your individual, has 190. So I guess, can you compare and contrast maybe the characteristics in somebody that does 5 versus 190? Is it curiosity differences? Is it tenacity differences? Is it innovativeness? I mean, what do you think phenotypes those two different, people? And it kind of goes to your unmet need question. Maybe people see unmet needs a little bit easier than other people.
A big part of innovating is connecting dots. It's seeing something and seeing an opportunity and connecting that to some physical feasibility. And that's what I didn't know JM. He died in 1989. I joined him in 1993. But that's what, just from every piece of signal you get about him, he was the most amazing connector of dots. And he crossed
structural engineering, electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, I think no chemical engineering, but across discipline. He was an architect by training, not an engineer. He was just curious, and he wasn't that successful. I mean, the shrimp peeling business was a decent business, but we were lucky in the sequence. You had this father with this wonderful portfolio of stuff. Then you had a son who was a remarkable builder of a business around that stuff. So the opposite sequence would not have worked.
Kelly.
Hi, thank you so much for such an inspiring presentation and discussion. I was interested in your comment you made when you first began asking everyone how many of you have become rich by your ideas, and my reaction was, well, it may depend on how we define rich. And so Kimberly and I have talked a lot about metrics and evaluation and process and how we define impact, and I'd be interested to know how you think about that in terms of your benchmarking and in terms of how you aspire to grow and the type of people you bring into your team.
So, first of all, I agree with the premise of your point, because let's say you have something that's making life better but may not make you money. But if you say, I'm here to change the world, and I have conviction about this, and your innovation, whether it's a physical innovation or something else, yes, I fully agree with that. I will tell you, in our business, the main measure of value is money, right? So, because like the customers, our blessing and our curse is we're not selling an emotion, we're not selling a style, we're selling something that's pretty high stakes for the customer, and they're not going to make that decision immediately. It's not like if I'm trying to sell you a pen, you're going to say, right then, okay, I'll buy that pen. This is high stakes. There are going to be a few people making it. Some are going to go in and out of the room. So whether they buy and what price they buy correlates very much with our value. We have a function we haven't talked about called business development analysts who study exactly that. What's the value of solving this problem? And that helps us rank all of our innovations. Did I answer your question?
Yes, I think value is a keyword there.
Yeah, it's a value, exactly.
Values for whom, right?
Stuff that we don't, our opportunity cost is so high, we don't invest in stuff that we don't have. If we wouldn't buy it ourselves, and if we wouldn't make it a priority to buy it, why waste everyone's time? Because it's not going to sell anyway. And we have too many great opportunities. We should stay on those.
We have time for one more question. The gentleman in the purple shirt.
Thank you so much for this talk. This was very inspiring. I had a question in the perspective of a student who doesn't necessarily belong in a discipline that's usually associated with innovation. Let's say I'm a social science student. So for students that don't necessarily belong in those kinds of disciplines or ideally not seen as innovators from a more technical sense, what advice would you give them on how to translate some of the skills that we gain in those disciplines? Along with that, what are some concrete skills that you would recommend for people to develop?
That's a beautiful question, and I do think I have a good answer because, so first of all, as I said, after graduating from college, I had no marketable skills of any kind. And then after graduating from law school, I was only qualified to be a litigator, right? So I come to Landrum, Jay and I just had this, he thought I was a good communicator, and I was a good facilitator of meetings and that sort of thing. So also, I learned a lot from Jay immediately, not details and domain mastery, but what principles we're applying in making this business. So if you can be that guy, because that was my tailwind through that long career. Jay could send me anywhere. He could put me in charge of a department that was struggling, knowing I knew how he thought. I'm not going to make snap judgments in real time about some high-tech decision that a domain master would have. I just know that if you apply these principles, good things are going to happen. And if you deal with people, so if you're a good people manager, I would say you hold a lot of cards compared to a STEM whiz. If you're thoughtful about how do you coach, we haven't talked about that, but that's a big deal at the company. If you're a very effective leader in the terms of the ability to manage by principle, articulate principles, define purpose, and coach people up, you're going to be very employable among the right kind of company.
All right, so today you get an opportunity to talk about your ideas in your posters, and we're really excited for you to share that not only with us, but with everyone that's in the room that will be visiting. My hope is that you all inspire each other and you see the possibilities in the work that you're doing way beyond a grade. I hope that John's talk today also inspired you to think about things maybe from a different perspective. A lot of these life lessons and things that he shared about interlocks are really applicable regardless of discipline. And I hope that John and some of his team members will stick around and introduce themselves to you today. And I want to also invite you all to open mic night this evening from 5 to 8 over in Richardson Hall, where you'll see people talk about their ideas in their concepts. They're not full-blown, I have a business plan or a business model. It's like, I have this idea, I'm gonna take 3 minutes and pitch it. So you'll see sort of the evolution of your science and what you've done today and being able to talk about it in a way that's compelling. And then hopefully the next stage is where you might get some mentoring from people in our mentor network and so on. And so we're here to support you, to grow the ecosystem, to make you feel that anything that you can, if you can dream it, you can be it kind of thing. If you can do that here at Tulane, we're here to support you. With that said, thank you, John, for taking the time to be with us and being such a great partner, and for all the great work that Interlocks is doing here in Louisiana. We need you to keep keeping on. So thank you so much. Please, round of applause for John.
Thank you, Kimberly, and thanks to all of you.
Oh, good. Yeah, good. Good job.
Very much.